I'm going to go on record and say that I think that Predator Killer of Killers is probably now ranks in the top 3 of the entire Predator franchise. Hands down. I believe Dan Trachtenberg, who also did Predator Killer of Killers and is also going to be bringing us Predator Badlands, I think he's done a fantastic job with bringing the franchise sort of back to peak form. And he did Prey, and Prey ranks up there in those top 3. Now, for me, this is the controversial part of this. Predator 2 with Danny Glover and the late Bill Paxton, that for me ranks in my top 3 because I really enjoy that film in spite of the terrible dialogue with Maria Conchita and all that other stuff. And some of the stuff that was corny, I actually enjoy that movie. But I will say, getting back to Predator Killer of Killers, I think this ranks up there as an animated feature. It's an anthology film, so it's 3 different stories that take place, and we'll get into that in a second. But I think the animation makes the action fantastic. You couldn't do this if it was real live action. Well, you probably could, but I just think this really works, and some of the animation is probably some of the best animation that's come around in a long, long time, and I really enjoyed it. So we're going to get into it. That Guy Talks Movies. We don't need an intro. We're just going to get into it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're one of my subscribers, I always show you guys love. Appreciate you being here. Let's get into it. So, as I said, Dan Trachtenberg is back doing this. Now, I'm a little worried about Predator Badlands, and if you've seen my take on the trailer for that, then you know how I feel. The whole Predator, the young Predator, whatever's going on there, I don't know, but I personally don't think that's, I don't know. Considering Dan Trachtenberg is doing the right thing so far, and he did it with Prey, and he's doing it here with Predator Killer of Killers, we got to assume that Badlands actually may not be as bad as it looks. We'll get into that another time. So this is an anthology film, 3 different stories taking place. The first one is a Viking, Ursa, and this is in 841 AD. And she winds up fighting one of these predators, the what do they call it? The upgraded predators, the one that kind of like take characteristics of all different things, whatever. And it's kind of like this steroid predator is kind of what that is. And she basically is avenging the death of her father, and she proves herself to be this warrior, and this predator comes and stalks her and winds up fighting her. The second story takes place in feudal Japan with 2 samurai brothers, Kenji and Kyoshi. This is 1609 in Japan, and they're, training and fighting with each other. And then the actual predator, which is I believe a feral predator type species of predator, comes and figures out which one is the best out of the 2 and winds up fighting him. And there's a whole thing going on there. I'm not going to get into every detail of every story in case you haven't seen this. And then there is the third act, which is World War II, 1942, with a pilot mechanic named Torres, a younger guy. And this is the only problem I had with the entire thing. This is the only problem I had. Now, and perhaps maybe I will have slight spoilers here. I'm assuming you've seen this already. I'm doing this review late, so whatever. It's a few days late. So my issue with this is the first 2 stories, the Predator, with Predator culture and what they do as hunters, looking for the best of the best, looking for hunters, looking for worthy opponents, traveling the galaxy, looking for, worthy fights and people that are going to actually find to be a challenge. The first one, the warrior, the Viking warrior, Ursa, a badass warrior, fighter, sort of primal, sort of like just a rough sort of thing, representing more, the straight up warrior kind of thing. The Predator going after, it makes sense that they would fight, right? The second, the samurai, right? This elegant fighting machine and blah, 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 whatever, and the sword and blah, blah, blah. You would think that Predator's going to find that to be a challenge, right? Then we move to the World War II guy. First of all, he's established immediately as a bit of an incompetent sort of letdown to his dad and a moron. Like, let's just keep it real. He's not much of a mechanic. He can't fix his own car. He floods the engine. He doesn't really know how to deal with anything like that. Then suddenly he finds himself drafted, and we move forward, and he is suddenly a pilot in the Navy or the Air Force, whatever, during World War II. And it strikes me as he's totally not a warrior whatsoever. In fact, he comes off as quite aloof, and it's almost a bit of comedy in this whole thing, right? It injects some comedy into it because his character is sort of, again, aloof and silly and kind of not very competent. So he ends up finding himself flying, and all the other pilots go take off, and he winds up having to go in a plane that barely works, and he's up there and he's one of the last to survive along with the captain. And then he sort of outmaneuvers the Predator because the Predator is taking out pilots left and right. This is probably one of the coolest scenes in the actual whole anthology, is the Predator in the air in an actual aircraft with these crazy weapons and spinning things that are just cutting planes in half and ripping pilots out of the cockpit. That's probably one of the best parts of the whole film. But that particular story with this one guy as a warrior, I just found to be lacking. And it went against the whole Predator thing. Like, why would you even bother with this? Now, some might argue the point that, well, Torres represented some sense of like skillful, using your brain to figure stuff out. So tactically speaking, he becomes a threat in some way or a challenge, which I just don't see. I just think it would have worked better if this guy had actually grown up and he got drafted. And then years later, we find out that he's a really, really, worthy fighter pilot, like a World War II flying ace, and the way it comes off in this, it's like he could have, Snoopy could have fought him and whooped his ass, but whatever. All right, the point is he makes it and he does this thing. Now, at the end, what takes place is we learn that the Predators are actually taking the warriors from these different time frames and putting them in cryosleep, I guess, whatever it's called. They keep them alive and keep them in sleep, and they don't age or whatever happens. And then they end up having some massive fight in a Predator arena, I guess, on their home world. And there's a Predator King that's introduced, which is absolutely another highlight of this whole thing. This guy comes out with a cape made out of xenomorph tails and the rib cage of like an alien queen, and he's got his face mask is a Predator skull for a face mask. He's this hulking huge thing, and they have this huge fight, and the bottom line is they're supposed to fight till the death. It's sort of like this gladiatorial game kind of thing, and whoever survives that is supposed to fight him. That doesn't go too well according to his plan. Things mixed up a little bit and blah blah whatever. I'm not going to give away the ending in case you haven't seen it, but that's the story. We also learn a couple things by the end of this film, which are going to lead us into probably more down the road, whether it's going to be animated features, whether it's going to be shorts, whether it's going to be a series, whether it's going to be a live action film. I don't know, but there's a lot to work with here. A few Easter eggs that are thrown in that are going to definitely keep you like invested in this universe. And I'm glad that we are back with this and we actually feel good about this. Now, if we can just do this with Star Wars, I'd be a happy camper. But anyway, Predator Killer of Killers. Let me know if you've seen it. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. I really dug this. I just thought it was it's great. There's some great action scenes, like the whole scenes in the beginning with the Viking and the samurai. Again, that World War II in the air thing was just different. To see Predators fighting in a ship and with their technology, that's what was great. I don't think it's the best out of the best. I kind of enjoyed the samurai stuff, but that was good. Anyway, That Guy Talks Movies. Again, let me know in the comments what you think. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.